So my name is Simon Law. I'm from Oracle. I'm sure most of you have heard of Oracle, but I'm not here to talk about databases today. Today I'm going to talk about how you can build a dev test, demo, and a POC system in the cloud using something called Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So I'm a product manager for this cloud service. So the topic is sort of targeted for ISVs and SIs, but I think it applies to all IT shops. It doesn't have to be ISV. So, and half of my talk is going to be demo based. So I don't think you guys have seen any demos yet, because my product is a cloud product. It runs, it's a URL that connects to it's a portal. So I'm going to demo that. So what are the challenges? A business imperative for ISVs, right? So these are the challenges that I see if you're an ISV. BS, which is build products and sell products, right? Those are the two things as an ISV. You want to build quality products and you want to build fast products so you can have a competitive edge. Obviously, you want to, after you build it, you want to sell your product, and also training is another requirement as an ISV you need to have. You need to train your partners that they can help you to sell your product, as well as to train customers. Customers want to use your product, they have to do training. So these are the three things that I focus on, and what are the challenges in each area? Let's focus on building a product. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of these. These are all the challenges that you will face as an ISV when you are trying to build your product. And as a product manager, I see this all the time. When we release a product, a customer tests it, and then they find an issue, and then they come back to the product manager, and first thing I do is point fingers at the QA team. How come you didn't find this problem? This seems like a basic requirement. Why didn't you find it? And then they will always explain to me one of these. We have we have limitations. We can't reproduce the same traffic or the same infrastructure as a production customer environment. I just don't have the machine. We try to simplify the test and then try to mimic. Maybe instead of having 10 servers, we use one server to mimic the customer scenario, and then you just don't hit those issues until you have a real life infrastructure set up to do the testing. So one of the key things here is that you're going to hit bugs during different stages of the life cycle, and this is how expensive it is. If you fix the bug during development, it costs you $80 to fix a bug. But if you find the bug when it's gone production, it's going to be $7,600 to fix the bug, right? So the earlier you can catch the bug, the less expensive it is for you. So this is for building a product. What about selling the product? What are the challenges? Once you have a product, you want to sell it. One of the first thing is demos. You want to do a good job demoing your product. Your sales consultants go on site, talk to customers, and want to showcase all the features that you have in your product. Typically what you have, the SCs won't have a full environment to demo the whole suite of products. So what they do is they have a vanilla demo, so it doesn't use reference architecture and take shortcuts and only show a little bit of the features that you have. Mainly because they don't have the resource. There's no infrastructure resource for them to set up the complete demo environment. And then the next step, when you want to do a proof of concept, the customers are interested now. Really interested, they want to set up the environment, and there's no resource for that. It takes a long time to acquire the resource to set up all the machines in order to, especially if in parallel multiple customers are interested in your product, you need the infrastructure to demo your product. So for POCs, getting hardware and setting up the environment is actually a very time-consuming task. And then even if you have demos, you have POCs, these environments are very bursty, right? You can't predict next week how many of these environments do I need for demos and for POCs. So these are bursty workloads that is very difficult if you're trying to set this up in your own data center to tailor for every single demo or POC request. So what about training? I talked about building the product as well as demoing the product. Now for training the users, training is another scenario where it's hard to predict the number of people who's going to come online and sign up for training. In the old days, people sign up a month from now, you have a training class, you get all the lists, and then you just Make sure you have the infrastructure to support, say, 100 students. Now what you do, you actually have to make them online, right? It's on-demand training. People come to your website, they sign up for it, and they don't want to do training not next week. They actually want to do it now. They come in and say, give me the environment, I want to do the certification test. So it's very hard not to over-provision because you just don't know. You're just going to take the mean and say, maybe I have to serve 50 concurrent students at any one time, and you have all the hardware set up just for that. So it doesn't really scale if you want to build it using your own data center. Now the other thing is performance. If you have a global company, you're going to have students or customers coming from all over the world who want to do training classes. Do you have the infrastructure to be able to provide good latency for every geographic students or people who want to do your training classes? So that's another scenario. Oh, I should talk about a use case. Another scenario would be if you're going to conferences and you offer hands-on labs to these students, right? We have a customer, what they used to do was they have a conference every year in Vegas, and then they have 5,000 people coming in for that particular day, and they do just hands-on labs, right? Just for that one day. What they used to do was they ship hardware. Can you imagine the hardware that's required to be shipped to Vegas for that one-day event with 5,000 servers needed for the students? It's a logistic nightmare if you want to do all of that by shipping hardware. And I haven't even talked about the logistic nightmare of setting up all the infrastructure, cloning all these repeatable environments for training use cases. So what ISVs need is actually both data center-like features as well as cloud-like capabilities. So what they want is they want to be able to run virtualized workload, which is what they typically use in the data center today to provision training classes, to do demos. Most companies will be using some virtual machines. So you want to be able to run virtual machines and layer 2 networking. You know, typically in your data center, your applications or your virtual machines will be connected using layer 2 and layer 3 networking. And layer 2 network typically is not available on the public cloud. So you want these features as well as any virtual appliances, right? If your applications or your demos requires load balancers, firewalls, all of these are running in your data center today. You want all of that to run in the public cloud. Now the advantage of the cloud of all those use cases I talked about training, demo, POC environment is you want infinite capacity on demand, right? If I'm only using one server today, please charge me for one server. Tomorrow, if I need to have 100 servers, charge me for that 100 server. And charge me by the hour. When I'm done, you know, stop charging me. It's usage-based charging. And you want to be able to deploy across the globe. If I have students that's today doing training class in Singapore, deploy my training environment in Singapore. Tomorrow, if our customer from South America, make sure they have the best experience, deploy that whole application in South America. And then you want to automate all of these, right? You don't want to, you know, write scripts, or not write scripts, you know, manually set up these repeatedly. You want some kind of way of automating all of these. So this what cloud gives you, and this is what you typically need in the data center environment. So today, I'm going to talk about the Oracle Ravello service. So far, I haven't even touched on what Ravello is yet. I'm a product manager of Ravello, so I'm going to try and do that now. I'm sure most of you know what a CD is, an audio CD. We used to buy albums on a CD, and then that only works, you know, you need a CD player to play your CD, right? Typically, initially you have it at home, it's not portable. Then Sony came out with the Discman, it's portable, and then they have 6 CDs, make it more portable. It's your own collection of music. But now what do? People stream online. You put your whole music collection into the cloud. So you can, doesn't matter where you are, you don't have to carry any devices. As long as you have internet access, you'll be able to get access to your music. So look at Ravello as a storage, cloud storage of every single virtual machines that you have in your data center. And if you don't have it, you can also create virtual machines using Ravello. So it's collection of all your applications that you have in your data center today. We can put that into the cloud. So let me do the demo. I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes on the demo. Hopefully after the demo, you understand the value add of Ravello. So I already logged into the Ravello portal. So I come in, and then the first thing you need to do is, remember I said it's a library of virtual machines, right? So you go into your account, and you want to upload any VMs that you have. Say you want a particular demo consists of 5 VMs, that makes up your product demo. Or your training classes require these set of VMs, so you upload them into your account. So if you can see in my account, they say 41 VMs, because I already loaded these 41 VMs into them. So the source of these VMs can be VMware VMs, can be VirtualBox VMs, can be KVM VMs, or could be OVM VMs. And if you don't have VMs, you can actually create them from scratch. You can actually mount an ISO disk to a Windows disk or a Linux and operating system and create these VMs from scratch. Now that you have these VMs in your repository, what you do is then you create an application. So I come into here, I create an application. This is a TECHunplugged demo. And then it opens up a canvas. Canvas is an area, a workspace, where you drag and drop your VMs, and what you put in the canvas is what goes on the public cloud. So I have an application. This is what I'm going to set up, and it's a project management VM. So it consists of 4 VMs. It's got a database, it's got a WebLogic admin server, application server, and then a Windows client. So now that I drag and drop these VMs into the canvas, and if you notice, it passes the information from the VM, what you have in the data center. It knows this VM consists of 2 CPUs, 8 gig of memory, and it uses these CPU, and obviously it's in the cloud, you can make changes to them. If you want to give it more beef, increase the CPU, you can do that. This is the disk layout. You know, I have 2 disks for this VM, and if you want to add extra disks, you can do that here. Whatever you do in your data center today, you can do that here using the Ravello portal. And then let's look at the network. It knows by looking at the VM files what is the network construct that you were using in your data center. And this is the key thing here. This is the magic with Ravello. If you notice, these 4 VMs is split over these 3 different subnets. And Ravello will rebuild your data center networking in the cloud, which means that these VMs will inherit the same MAC address as you have in your data center, same IP addresses, same local host name. What does that mean? That means your VM don't have to make a single line of code change, and they will run in the public cloud as is. Because whatever you have, the IP address you are using in this VM will continue to run in the public cloud. So obviously you can you can create new VMs, you can actually add extra routers, add extra switches if you want to change the network topology. But if you're happy with this, you can just hit publish, and then it tells you this particular applications consist of these 4 VMs. How much it's going to cost? It shows me it's $1.5 to have it running in an hour. And then you choose the region. It depends on the consumer, right? So Ravello is a cloud service that allows you to deploy your multi-VM applications on Oracle Cloud, Amazon Cloud, as well as Google Cloud. So all 3 public cloud providers offer us 29 different regions. So you can pick the regions that's the closest to your client, depending on what the use case is. So I'm in the East Coast today, so I'm going to deploy it to US East. And then you just hit publish, and then that's it. That's all you need to do. So this particular application suite of 4 VMs are now being published to a particular region called US East 5. So this typically takes about 5 minutes, because depending on the size of these VMs, it gets shipped over to the public cloud. So I already have an application pre-deployed. So it becomes green once it's published. And once it's available, what you can do is you actually click on these VMs and you click on this button. You can actually log into the VM just like you do typically when you are in your data center. So now I'm inside my VM. Likewise, there's also a GUI interface. This is a window VM. So you see there's a window interface. I can bring up the Chrome browser, and then this is a WebLogic server, as well as my the applications that was running there, which is a project management application. So all of that is now available, and then the cool feature is that once you build this environment, make all the changes you want, this is the master copy of a particular application you want to keep. You can save it as a blueprint. So look at a blueprint as a snapshot of the whole application environment. So you take a blueprint, you save it, no shutdown, you create, and then next time you want to create another instance of this same application deployed to the cloud. Maybe you have 2 customers you want to demo to, right? One is in the East Coast, one in the West Coast. Instead of doing drag and drop each time, what you can do, you just come into here, create another application, and then this time you just say select from a particular blueprint, right? So I have a separate blueprint here, and then automatically the canvas will be deployed with these applications. I have, you can actually have a whole collection, not just VMs. You can have a collection of all the applications that you have built in the cloud. So I have a bunch of these different applications, and then you can have as many VMs as you want. We have a customer who do cyber ranges, and they use Ravello for this because they talk to Wall Street customers, and they set up the whole infrastructure in order to do security training to the client. So they have thousands of these VMs to mimic a data center scenario. So you look at this one, right? This is a blueprint with about 20. And then if I want to make another copy of this available online, I just hit publish. And then within 5 minutes, I have another copy of this running in the cloud. So this is the blueprint. And then, we have REST API support. Obviously, you can use the GUI interface. Everything that you see in the GUI interface is actually a wrapper on top of REST API. So every click, every operations that I show you here is a REST API call. So you can write, if you're doing, say, a training class tomorrow, you have 50 students, you save the blueprint, and then you can write a REST API script and say, tomorrow at 8 a.m., using this blueprint, spin up 50 copies of it. And then at the end of the day, at 6 p.m., just shut it down. And then you only be charged for those hours, the number of copies of these applications that's running in the cloud. I want to show you a couple more features. So one of them is, imagine you, as an ISV, you demo your product to the customer and they like it. And you want to leave an environment, you want to leave a POC environment to the customer. So what do? You can actually set up ephemeral access. You come into here. So ephemeral access is a way, just like when you have a document online, a Google Doc, and you want to share it to your colleagues. You can give them a URL link. Either they can only view it, or they can also edit it. So this is a similar concept. You can come into here, you say, I want to create a token. Maybe you want to leave it for a particular customer, right? Customer, POC, environment. You can give them read, update, or execute. Typically, you don't give them update. You just give them read and execute. And then you want to leave it with them for a week so they can play with your product. So I'm just going to leave it here, maybe till 30th. What is it today? Today is 22nd, right? So you say create. And then this is the URL, right? So then once you have this URL, you can send it to your customer. They don't need to have a Ravello account. You just give them this URL, and then they can come into here and they see these VMs. They can click console, they can stop and start these VMs, and then they can log in and use your software. But they don't have access to edit any of these, and this will expire in a week. So this is a kind of environment only for that particular customer for the POC purposes.
So question would be, what is the performance using your hypervisor on top of the public cloud?
Okay. I do have some slides on that, but I actually didn't prepare for this because I wasn't going to focus on the performance. But I can talk about it just quickly.
Sure.
We actually have 3 different modes how this runs, right? So Ravello in some way is actually a nested hypervisor. It's a hypervisor that runs in the cloud that's on already virtualized environments. I think your question was because all cloud are basically virtual machines, right? And then Ravello is another hypervisor that runs on it. So by default, using that configuration, it gives you good performance but not optimal performance. So we added 2 different modes. One is if you run on the Oracle Cloud, well actually both of these 2 modes are if you run on Oracle Cloud, one is called hardware assisted nested acceleration. So what we did is the Oracle Cloud actually gave us extensions that pass through, so it actually can call the extensions, virtualization extensions that's running underneath the cloud. And so Ravello run on top of it, it actually call those extensions and automatically call the silicon underneath. So you get much better performance that way than the traditional way. And the other way you can run Ravello is actually it runs on bare metal. So on the Oracle Cloud, you can get a bare metal server, Ravello sit on top of it, then it gives you the native hypervisor performance, just like any hypervisor today.
Okay.
So this is the POC environment, and I want to show you something training. I gave you an example of how training platform is ideal for this, right? So one of the features that we built into the product is you can actually use this tool to schedule training classes. You can actually define courses, and then for each course you can define classes, and you can say this particular blueprint is associated with this blueprint, and you can say is deployed to which region, right? Like this one, at the date and time when this is going to be run, and then you can add in a list of students. You can actually set up classes for these students, and then all of these students will get that link. You remember the link I showed you, the infirmary access? It will automatically generate those, and you can send it to your students. And they have their own fence-off environment and doesn't overlap with each other. Okay. So hopefully the demo will explain it much better, because I only have one slide on what is Ravello. Okay. So if you have questions, let me know. So let's look at let's look back to those use cases, right? So I talked about building product, doing demos, and training. So this is one way you can accelerate product development by using setting up QA environments for continuous integration. In fact, this is what we do today. Ravello product is built, and then every night we actually use Jenkins and spin up multiple QA environments so we can run regression tests on it. So this is actually a great example of where using the cloud, you spin up all these different environments so you can run parallel regression tests. The second use case, remember I talked about doing demos and POCs. I just want to walk through some of these, right? Is because Ravello can passes those VMs and create a software-defined networking network that mimic your data center setting, which means you don't have to make any changes to your VMs. So you can actually create realistic demos. You know, if your demo in real life requires 10 servers, you can create all of that using Ravello. So it's the same networking, realistic, repeatable demo. Blueprint is a very powerful snapshot concept, right? Once you have a master copy of your complete application, save it as a blueprint, and then you can spin up as many replica copies of that as you need. And because it's running in the cloud, it's unlimited capacity. We support 29 different regions. You can ask for as many copies as you want. If one region runs out, we have US West 1, West 2, West 3, West 4 from the different cloud providers. Different regions, and then the setup time, right? With the blueprint, every blueprint we're looking at, depending on the size of VM, will be 10 minutes. You will have another copies of it. And if you need 50 copies, it's not 10 minutes times 50, right? This all happens in parallel. So it's still going to be 10 minutes. And then this is talking about the training scenario, right? So training, you have a training lab that you set up in your data center. You use Ravello to save up as a blueprint. And then you clone, depending on the regions and the number of copies, So if you have trainees in America, you just publish to the America regions. You have trainee in APAC, then you just deploy it into the APAC region. And then just a final summary slide. The value add that Ravello brings is agility. And first of all, migration cost. It's very simple. Like I said, you just take your existing on-prem data center VMs, upload it to your Ravello account without making the changes, let Ravello discover all the networking, and then there's no conversion needed. It's the same VM as you have in your data center. And then the agility is that you don't have to provision any infrastructure.
So that's VM only. So if I've got physical service running, I first need to do a physical to virtual and then upload it to...
If you're using Ravello, I can give you an example. A scenario we see a lot for, especially for Oracle, will be the application tier is virtualized. So that goes to Ravello. The physical tier, typically like the Oracle database is physical. Then you can move that to a particular cloud service, the Oracle database cloud service, which is running on the bare metal server, and then you use Ravello to talk to the Oracle database through the internal network using VCN peering. So that's available too. So the physical part can go to the bare metal server and then use the internal network. Yeah, no setup overhead because it's a cloud, right? You don't have to tell us how many instances you need in advance. We don't have to provision them in advance. It's at the time when you need it, you just tell us how many copies or how many environments you want. And then also cost saving. If you're comparing to on-prem environment, managing all this infrastructure for training, for demo, for dev test, this is actually using the cloud is the most economical way of doing this on-demand transient type workload. And then I want to leave you with this slide, but are there any questions that you guys have on Ravello?
So
you said Ravello discovers the networking?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the VMware, because this networking information is actually part of the metadata of the VM. So it actually passes them, it knows the IP address, it knows the subnet. That's why you saw when I drag and drop those VMs into there, you saw the network diagram, it actually figured out what the subnet is and what the IP address is, and then we'll recreate that, your data center network in the cloud for you.
Okay.
And then, Simon, can you actually, so obviously you guys can get a topology of the network. You can't get an idea of the rules and the access list that exist in the network. So is that something that we can go back and edit as part of the network configuration after the fact?
Yes, you can, because I was actually showing a network diagram where you can add extra router, change the subnet, make IP address changes. All of this is editable. It will do a attempt of taking those from the metadata, and then if you want to make changes or edit, you can do that. Yeah.
So how many companies are using this already?
Using this,
Using the product like you showed at training centers.
There's actually a lot. So I can give you some usage. Red Hat, you guys know who Red Hat is, right? They're like one of our top customers. They have products, they have partners all over the world. Whenever they release a new release, they need to train the partners, right? So that's what they use Ravello for. Red Hat certification, customer who do certification, Informatica, if you go online to training, all of these are running on the Ravello platform.
Okay, and how does Ravello help in their transition to using this kind of systems where they were used to doing it in a different way? So is there a team that will help them? Is it so easy that they can just...
So what I usually tell customers, it is as what I've shown you, to upload the only thing I didn't show you was uploading the VM. It's not just a tool. You tell us which VMs and it automatically upload into your account for you. You can sign up for a trial account, go to this link, sign up, and then you actually use it's actually drag and drop, and you can hit publish. And then if you need any help, you can always reach out to me. But it is pretty much as easy as that.
Yeah.
If you just drag and drop and then you hit publish, and then there's another copy of it available in the cloud. Because Ravello is the hypervisor. It replaces the hypervisor that you use on-prem, and it's a cloud hypervisor.
Okay.
I think my time is up. So thank you very much, everyone.